Tonight, murder for hire. The alleged assassination plots linked to India. The explosive indictment from the U.S. Justice Department.
The Indian government needs to work with us.
With connections to the case that strained diplomatic relations here. More hostages exchanged on the 6th day of a truce set to expire within hours. Also, Google's deal to keep Canadian news in its searches.
It sets an important precedent.
Plus, a degree of relief over a milder winter forecast.
Drier and warmer.
And warnings of a sophisticated car theft scheme.
Re-VINed stolen vehicles, fraudulently re-registering them.
The tactic making it especially tough to trace.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. The dramatic details could be right out of an international crime thriller. A foiled assassination plot with links to Canada, according to American federal prosecutors, and they allege India's government orchestrated it. The U.S. Department of Justice says 52-year-old Nikhil Gupta, currently in prison in the Czech Republic and awaiting extradition to the U.S., tried to hire a hitman for $100,000, but that the hitman was actually an undercover agent. U.S. officials released this photo of what they claim is a $15,000 cash advance. The intended target was believed to have been this man, a Sikh activist based in New York and a dual U.S.-Canadian citizen. But the connection to Canada doesn't end there. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin starts us off.
Global blockade.
Washington officials say this man, Gurpat Want Singh Panu, was the target of a failed murder plot on U.S. soil. A dual U.S.-Canadian citizen, Panu is a lawyer and outspoken leader for Sikh independence in New York. India calls him a terrorist. He says they're trying to crush him and the movement.
Just killing me will not kill my political opinion. Just to kill me physically is not going to work on the contentious issue of the state of Punjab being associated with India or not. The question will still remain whether I'm alive or dead.
U.S. prosecutors charged Nick Gupta, an Indian national, in a murder-for-hire plot. The indictment says Gupta was recruited by a senior field officer with the Indian government to murder Panu. The plot fell apart when money was exchanged with a hitman who turned out to be an undercover law enforcement officer. The indictment alleges that Gupta knew Canadian Sikh activist Hardip Singh Nijar was a target. The day after Nijar was gunned down last June, Gupta told the hitman, "We have so many targets. We have to finish 4 jobs. The victim, Mr. Panu, and after that, 3 in Canada." These explosive allegations come months after Canada's Prime Minister said there was credible evidence tying the Indian government to the Canadian killing.
The news coming out of the United States further underscores what we've been talking about from the very beginning, which is that India needs to take this seriously. The Indian government needs to work with us to ensure that we're getting to the bottom of this.
Straining relations between India and Canada and now Washington. The Biden administration dispatched 2 of its top intelligence officials to New Delhi over the past few months.
The U.S. is demanding an investigation. India says it will take the matter seriously and will launch an inquiry. Omar?
All right, Joy, thank you. The 6-day truce between Israel and Hamas is scheduled to expire within hours. Despite the relative calm in Gaza, violence has surged in the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Health Ministry says Israel killed 2 young boys during a raid on a refugee camp. Israel says it was trying to root out militants. CTV's Heather Wright on the violence and a warning some images are difficult to watch.
16 more hostages are now free. Among them, 2 Russian women seen here in a video released by Hamas as they were handed over to the Red Cross. 30 Palestinians were also released from Israeli jails as part of day 6 of this truce. More than 100 hostages have been freed since this ceasefire began, including members of the Brodich family.
Literally living on hope.
Aaron Brodich just returned to Canada after visiting his niece, nephews, and sister-in-law, who were released by Hamas on Sunday.
There's still a lot of trauma that we can already see. They lost a lot of weight.
There is mounting concern for the youngest hostages. Hamas claims 10-month-old Kafir, 4-year-old Ariel, and their mother Shiri Bibas are dead, killed in an Israeli airstrike. Israel says it's investigating the claim. Israel has also stepped up raids in the occupied West Bank, including one this morning in Jenin. At 5 a.m., they started shooting at us, this man says. The Palestinian Health Authority says 4 people were killed during raids today, including 2 children, 8-year-old Adam and 15-year-old Basil. Officials say this is the moment Adam was shot from behind, his friends seen here trying to drag him to safety. A second video appears to show Basil being hit and calling for help. The IDF says a number of explosives were hurled at soldiers, and they responded with live fire. They say 2 Hamas commanders were killed in the raid. This raid comes as the UN Secretary General called for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza.
The people of Gaza are in the midst of an epic humanitarian catastrophe before the eyes of the world. We must not look away.
The United States has told Israel that any renewed ground campaign in Gaza must operate with greater precision to protect innocent lives. Omar.
All right, Heather, thank you. There is late word tonight that Henry Kissinger, the towering diplomatic figure who maneuvered the conflict in the Middle East as Secretary of State, has died. Kissinger served under U.S. President Richard Nixon. He was involved in the U.S.-Soviet arms control talks and the Paris Peace Accords with North Vietnam, which earned him a Nobel Peace Prize. Kissinger died at his Connecticut home. He was 100 years old. Police in Edmonton have charged a 19-year-old man in the deaths of 2 constables who were shot and killed in the line of duty.
It is our hope that by concluding this investigation, we're able to bring some measure of resolution to these grieving families.
Dennis Okimau has been charged with manslaughter and negligence causing death in the slayings of constables Travis Jordan and Brett Ryan. Police say Okimau supplied the rifle to a 16-year-old boy who killed Jordan and Ryan while they were responding to a call on March 16th. A multi-billion-dollar project aimed at cutting carbon emissions was announced today near Edmonton.
A first of its kind in the world, in the whole world, net zero petrochemicals facility. And it will be the very first announced major project in Canada.
Petrochemical giant Dow Canada will invest $8.9 billion to build a carbon-neutral manufacturing facility in Fort Saskatchewan. The company says its goal is to transition to net zero emissions by 2050, which matches Ottawa's target. There is a resolution tonight in the showdown between Ottawa and tech giant Google. The internet giant has backed down from a threat to block Canadian news content and has agreed to pay into a fund to compensate news publishers for their work. But as CTV's Kevin Gallagher reports, the deal is tens of millions less than what the government thought Google should pay.
Ottawa's deal with Google went right down to the wire just 3 weeks before deadline.
We're setting the rules on how this, to set a fairer bargaining table between the digital platforms and our news sector.
For months, Google and Facebook's parent company, Meta, have opposed requirements under the Online News Act to compensate Canadian news companies for their content. Google will pay $100 million a year to be exempt from the law, $72 million less than the government originally estimated.
Google's going to play ball, and now it's going to go to the mat and work to shape these regulations.
Google has agreed to pay a media collective that will distribute the funds according to criteria that won't be released until next month when the law comes into effect.
It felt like for a while that the government forgot about us. We asked, as in industry asked for this, but we asked for this a long time ago.
Community newspaper owner Teresa Blackburn says today's deal is essential, with Google searches accounting for 47% of her web traffic. Her news outlet was severely impacted by Meta's decision to ban Canadian news over the summer in protest of the law.
We have lost considerably related to Meta. I really wish they could get back to the drawing board and at least talk to the government, it's becoming very, very difficult for us.
The government hopes the social media giant will reconsider.
Google knows that their search engine is better with Canadian news on it.
In a statement, Meta says it's unfair to compare its social media platforms to a search engine. It made it clear ending news availability for Canadians is the only way it can comply with the law. Omar?
All right, Kevin, thanks. And Ottawa is poised to announce an upgrade to Canada's aging fleet of military aircraft. The Canadian press is reporting the federal government has selected U.S.-based Boeing instead of Quebec-based Bombardier in a sole source deal to replace the half-century-old Auroras with 16 P-8A Poseidon surveillance aircraft. We have a reality check for you tonight on the federal government's pledge to ease Canada's housing crisis. CTV's Judy Trin broke down the numbers, and here's what she found.
And there's glass there on the balcony.
The Liberal government has shown up in hard hats 22 times in the past 4 months to announce money for low-income housing projects. The opposition says it's not making a difference.
What he's actually done is unlock hundreds of new photo ops at the expense of Canadian taxpayers.
The leader of the opposition is attacking us for making announcements on thousands upon thousands of new units built across the country.
So far, the federal government has spent $39 billion, about half of its $82.5 billion national housing strategy. Only a small portion goes directly to housing the most vulnerable. Since October 2020, Ottawa has spent $4 billion on building low-income apartments. That translates to 15,500 units at a cost of $260,000 each.
When we're dealing with affordable housing projects, the federal government is contributing to the cost of constructing the buildings. It's very expensive to build housing.
The shortage leads to high rents many can't afford. Housing advocates say at least 2 million rental units need to be built to meet demand and drive down costs.
Homelessness is surging in Canada today because the whole rental housing market is unaffordable.
The Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness estimates 300,000 people are currently in shelters, on the streets, or couch surfing. They can only afford subsidized housing.
For people experiencing homelessness, housing has to be affordable if they're on income support, so less than $500 a month rent.
Housing advocates define affordable rent as 30% of gross monthly income. Of the millions of homes that need to be built, advocates say as many as 650,000 rental units should be geared towards people in lower income brackets. Omar.
All right, Judy, thank you for this tonight. Health officials in Alberta have issued a warning about a case of measles in Calgary. The infected child was on a flight from Vancouver on November 23rd and was treated at Alberta Children's Hospital the next day, putting both passengers and patients at risk. No other cases linked to this one have emerged, but it can take up to 2 weeks for symptoms such as fever, a cough, and rashes to appear. There is a diagnosis tonight on the unusual weather patterns many parts of the country are witnessing. CTV's Alison Bamford examines what's behind the warm trend.
Greg Brewster is patiently waiting for the day he can groom Regina's ski trails, but the milder temperatures have melted away any chance of an early ski season.
As soon as you get the snow, everybody gets fired up and they want to get going, and people have tried to ski on it, but it's not very enjoyable.
Others don't mind the weather.
I like not having the snow and the ice just for driving purposes.
It's fabulous, so I hope it hangs on for a little while longer.
And it just might. Environment Canada says it's all thanks to an earlier than anticipated El Niño, a weather phenomenon associated with warmer than normal ocean temperatures in the Pacific. This El Niño is forecasted to last until spring.
That doesn't mean it won't get cold. It doesn't mean that it won't snow, that type of thing. It just means when you add up the numbers at the end of the season, it tends to be drier and warmer than average.
Saskatchewan and Alberta are feeling the effects, with hardly any snow accumulation in major cities. Several weather stations haven't recorded any precipitation this month, including one in Edmonton. According to the Weather Network, provinces further east could see more variable conditions as the season progresses, and Atlantic Canada may have a near-normal winter. But this warm trend is expected to stick around in BC and the prairies.
I do want a white Christmas, so I'm hoping that it snows around like December 23rd, but until then, I'm happy with the no snow.
Environment Canada says there has to be at least 2 centimeters of snow on the ground to classify as a white Christmas. A perfect Christmas happens when it snows on December 25th. Now, it's too soon to predict what will happen for the holidays, but the chances of a brown Christmas increase during an El Niño year. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
Coming up, cracking down on a complicated ploy to steal cars.
The accused individuals used their pre-existing knowledge in the automotive and finance industry.
The growing problem of re-VINed vehicles, plus a hit exhibit involving a ton of bricks. Police in Ontario believe they've taken a bite out of a growing and tricky crime. It's known as re-VINing, a sophisticated way of selling stolen cars undetected. As CTV's Alberta Bureau Chief Bill Fortier reports, it's a growing problem across Canada.
This high-end Bentley SUV is one of more than $1 million worth of stolen vehicles seized by Peel Regional Police.
They have been working tirelessly to arrest and dismantle this group.
Investigators believe they've taken down a sophisticated crime ring. 12 people face 81 charges. It's alleged the group was stealing cars across the Greater Toronto area and changing the vehicle identification number, or VIN, making them tough to trace or identify as stolen. It's known as re-VINing or VIN cloning. Old VINs are removed or covered up with new numbers taken from other cars or made up.
It was determined that the accused individuals used their pre-existing knowledge in the automotive and finance industry to complete these fraudulent transactions.
Re-VINing certainly is an issue of increasing concern.
According to the Insurance Bureau of Canada, the number of auto theft claims has tripled over the past 5 years. A big part of that believed to be connected to re-VINing. And consumers who think they're buying a used vehicle can wind up losing the car and the cash they paid for it if it turns out to be stolen.
That deal may seem too good to be true. And unfortunately, some people are finding out oftentimes that that is in fact the case.
In late September, 2 Ferraris stolen from Ontario were found with fraudulent VINs in Alberta. And in May, a vehicle with a tampered VIN led Calgary police to a seizure of drugs, cars, guns, and ammo. So if you're looking at a used car, you can find the vehicle identification number behind the windshield on the dash or inside the frame of the driver's side door. The Insurance Bureau of Canada has a free online verification tool where you can enter the number to find out if it's legit. Bill Fortier, CTV News, Edmonton.
Still ahead, unlocking the mystery of a major NHL ouster. The Chicago Blackhawks' high-profile breakup with a hockey star. Former NHL All-Star Corey Perry took another step toward having his contract terminated after clearing waivers today, as he wasn't picked up by other teams in the league. The Chicago Blackhawks announced moves to initiate the breakup yesterday, but didn't clear up why a one-time MVP was getting kicked off the team. CTV's Sarah Plowman looks at the unanswered questions.
Veteran NHLer Corey Perry was brought to the Blackhawks for his experience. He's been shown the door. His $4 million contract done.
He's won a cup. He was MVP of the league 1 year. Great player, great addition for 1 year, and then this just shocked me.
Dismissed for what the team called unacceptable conduct. Details are slim, rumors swirl. The general manager tried to quash them.
This does not involve any players or their families.
What's clear is the allegations are serious.
It's one thing to say, listen, we're going to remove the player from our team, but removing the player and terminating his contract, requires, real significant evidence.
The 38-year-old could file a grievance.
This isn't something that Corey Perry has to do. He's also going to have to think about what happened and what actions
he took and whether or not he wants this out in the public eye.
History hangs over the Blackhawks. 2 years ago, former player Kyle Beach alleged sexual assault by video coach Brad Aldridge in 2010. A lawsuit has since been settled and management overhauled.
I mean, this is a separate issue. These are separate individuals involved. The same principles, however, apply.
People are curious. The team noted it's a workplace matter, not something that violated the law. This lawyer doesn't expect the team to say more.
The privacy of the team, the privacy of the player in question, that's all at stake, and they're acting very prudently here.
Perry will have 60 days to file a grievance, should he choose to do so. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
After the break, it takes a village.
It's really nice to see, the look on people's faces.
A miniature holiday masterpiece built brick by brick. A Halifax man has internalized the saying, if you build it, they will come. His love of Lego has now grown into an annual community effort that is connecting Maritimers one brick at a time. CTV's Creason Edgekate reports.
This Christmas village has been a lifelong hobby for Owen Grace. Look closely and you will know why.
It's truly a family passion. But as I got older, it became a hobby and also a collection.
Grace and many other Lego enthusiasts have meticulously built this 20-meter-long city brick by brick. And it features a miniature train that brings life to the sprawling metropolis.
It's one of those things, it moves around the display, it gets to participate in all of the buildings, see everything as it goes around.
References to multiple blockbuster movies can also be found.
We have a little bit of a Who home from Whoville.
There's a lot of really cool Lego sets here and it inspires me to keep building Lego.
Grace calls it Bricks by the Sea, a Lego exhibit at Halifax's Museum of Natural History that he has hosted for 2 decades and grows bigger each year.
Just on the table, we'd be looking at about 250,000 pieces.
Various local landmarks can also be found, like the city's waterfront and Nova Scotia's Woody the Talking Christmas Tree.
The work and the time and the effort that the builders put into this project and this display is amazing.
The organizers say they do this for the love of Lego and their community.
You can build Lego in your basement, put it on your shelf, but it's really nice to see, the look on people's faces. And it's not just kids, it's not just people my age, it's people of all ages.
A Lego exhibit connecting the community in what it feels like to be a kid again. Creason Edgekate, CTV News, Halifax.
So intricate, a true passion project. That's a snapshot of this Wednesday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching and see you tomorrow. Good night.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.